Hi, my name is Oliver Malcolm, and this is me. This is the first knife that I ever bought. It, as you can see, has received some wear and tear from sharpening. It's even missing a few pieces, and it's one of my favorite knives. This is the only knife that I ever bought, and it was the first knife that I ever bought. It's even got a name, Five Finger Mary. When I started when I started cooking, my high school mentor told me, "Hold on to your knife, that it'll take you wherever you want to go," which is why I stand here before you today. I'm a grad of culinary school, a successful private chef, and great cook in one of the cities that is known for food everywhere, and soon to be a excellent, soon to be an excellent hospitality manager at a great establishment after I obtained my degree from Kendall College. But all this didn't come easy. There was a lot of opposition and a lot of hard-learned lessons that got me this far, and I wouldn't have made it without this knife. In my early childhood, as a child, I didn't want to be a chef. I wanted to be a biochemist. In early childhood, I went to magnet schools that taught reading and science and math heavily. You remember hearing about all the kids who were doing so well in standardized testing back in the 90s, who, did well in the Iowa test and stuff like that? I was one of those kids. Um, the more I learned, the better I tested, and the more that caught the eye of people who wanted to see me and other children succeed. In time, these people not only contacted the schools that me and all these other kids went to, but in time the schools started to contact us. And in fifth grade, I met a man named Matthew Ditto. He started a program called DePaul Prep Academy. Basically, it was a program designed to that help us learn more than we as kids already had. Um, During the summers, we would go to DePaul University. We'd get bused there every day, and we would learn advanced math, science, and reading comprehension. We took trips to the water reclamation plant to learn about science and bacteria and how we clean the city's water and what chemicals played a part there. We learned about the periodic table and how to balance chemical equations. We did history to learn about reading comprehension, and we learned advanced math, such as algebra, trig, and geometry. We did papers and projects to show what we learned, and it was a great program. Sadly, it got shut down after a little bit after seventh grade because they just cut the funding for some odd reason. I don't know. It was sad too because we did good work, and we were told that if we ever wanted to go to DePaul University, that we would get a special consideration. But all good things come to an end, and I finished 7th and 8th grade and went on to high school. I went to Tilden Career Community Academy on 47th and Union, and probably a few of you have heard of it as one of the turnaround schools in the city. It was a tough school and an even rougher neighborhood. Drugs, crossing rival gangs, and an impoverished community. But they had excellent teachers and teachers who were willing to help students learn. So I went to high school there, and at the age of 14, my grandmother's health started to fail. And for me, at the age of 14, I was only worried about probably playing football and trying to figure out what I was going to do after college. And since I was the oldest, my dad told me that I had to help around the house, and cooking was the way I helped. It made me think, though, because you had to do things a certain way to yield a proper result, and while you could tweak some things in cooking, you had to have a basic structure somewhere. My grandmother taught me her recipes and her way of cooking, and it wasn't hard, but it was my grandmother's cooking. It was a chore to me at first, but over time it became a stress reliever, and I started to love it. I started watching cooking shows. I became a foodie, and before I'd known it, I was taking her recipes. I was throwing her recipes completely to the wind, and I was coming up with something new every night. I literally started to only make enough food for one night, so that way every night I had to come home and I had to figure out something new to make. As I finished my first year of high school, we had to apply for career clusters for our sophomore year, and I applied for culinary arts. I entered the program and I soaked up everything like a sponge. I became a ProStart and CCAP competitor, and I am now a CCAP alum. So, from being a child with a deep desire for science and history, who wanted nothing to do with food service and hadn't even really noticed it for what it was worth, I slowly found out through a series of unfortunate events that I was a whiz at cooking, and that it came to me like a duck to water. I went on to compete in CCAP competitions in both my junior and senior year, earning a half scholarship to a private culinary school in Philadelphia, where I gained my associates. But along the way, I always remembered what my chef said about us and careers in cooking. He said, hold on to your knife. It'll take you wherever you want to go. Now, as it stands, I hold an associate's in culinary arts. I've worked in numerous food cities from Chicago to Philadelphia to Florida and New York. I'm a well-known CCAP alum and a mentor now to children who are going to schools in the same type of community that I went to school in, and have a desire to work in our industry. I've worked for Fortune 500 companies like Disney and the Whirlpool Corporation, and along the whole way, I did exactly what my mentor Keith Morris told me. I held on to my knife, and that's one of the things that I'll always remember. I've made numerous business contacts and friends throughout the Midwest and the East Coast who've all told me I'm a great chef, but management is key for that next ceiling that you want to break through. And as soon as you have that under your belt, the whole world will be open to you. So, here I am, cooking in the Hyatt Regency McCormick Place, holding on to my knife, and gaining a bachelor's degree in hospitality management. This is me.